Alcaraz clashes with the chair umpire over a branding dispute. Have you ever seen a match where the hottest point wasn't played with a racket, but during the changeover? In Cincinnati, Carlos Alcaraz not only advanced authoritatively to the quarterfinals, he also starred in a moment that ignited debate throughout the circuit. Because in the middle of a Masters 1000, a simple logo on a water bottle unleashed a discussion that no fan expected. And that made it clear that in professional tennis, battles are not always fought inside the court. Alcaraz was dominating Luca Nardi with solid tennis, precision from the baseline and an energy that left the Italian with no options. But in the second set, during a changeover, umpire Greg Allensworth interrupted the routine. "Carlos, cover the logos on your bottles." A request that for many players goes unnoticed, but which the Mercian received with bewilderment. He looked at the umpire as if he had heard something out of place. And in that instant, the sporting duel was put on hold to make way for an unexpected exchange of words. Greg, firm but cordial, explained, "It's what we've been told." The reference was clear: the tournament sponsorship policy, which demands exclusive visibility for Aquafina, the official water. Alcaraz, with a serious expression, replied, "Yes, but it's not my fault. Why do I have to cover it if it's not my fault? No, I'm not going to cover it." The cameras caught the scene and the fans, alert to the smallest detail, understood that it wasn't just about a simple bottle, it was a matter of principle. The Cincinnati Masters rules are strict. Everything that appears on camera must comply with the contracts with sponsors. From the staff's clothing to the players' benches, every brand is controlled. But on this occasion, the player from El Palmar was carrying Evian, a logo that clashes with that of the official sponsor. The friction between the purity of the game and the commercial demands had just erupted. Greg insisted, choosing his words carefully so as not to further tense the atmosphere. Carlos, without raising his voice but firmly, held his ground. The murmurs in the stands grew, and for those who follow the circuit, the scene evoked those moments when players decide to set a boundary with the organization. A rare moment, because Alcaraz does not usually get involved in controversies. The exchange did not escalate, but it left in the air a question: to what extent must a player adapt to commercial rules when they have not signed a direct agreement with that sponsor? For many, it was a show of character; for others, an unnecessary gesture in the middle of a match he had under control. In the end, Greg relented and play continued. Alcaraz closed out the match 6-1, 6-4, sealing his place in the quarterfinals. But as he left the court, the conversation was not just about his victory. Among journalists, coaches and fans, the subject was clear: the Mercian had stood up to the system. And he had done so in front of millions of spectators. In professional tennis, the relationship between sport and sponsorship is inseparable. Visibility contracts move millions and guarantee the viability of tournaments. However, episodes like the one in Cincinnati reveal the underlying tension. The player is obliged to comply with certain rules that, at times, they have not chosen. And for someone with Alcaraz's global profile, every gesture is amplified. This was not an improvised tantrum. Alcaraz defended his stance calmly, avoiding turning the situation into an open confrontation, but making it clear that he was not going to act against his own judgment. For tennis fans, that composure under pressure is as valuable as a passing shot down the line. He sent a message: his identity and his game are not so easily negotiated. On social media, the scene went viral. Some celebrated it as an act of independence, others reminded that rules are part of the package when entering a tournament. The truth is, the incident added an extra storyline to his path in Cincinnati. It's no longer just about his tennis, but also about the way he takes a stand on off-court issues. Looking ahead to his match against Andrei Rublev, the anticipation is double. Analysts talk about what could be a spectacular match from a technical point of view, but fans will be watching for the small gestures, the routines and, yes, the bottles on his bench. The bottle gate has become another element of the show. The interesting thing is that tennis, a sport traditionally controlled and diplomatic, rarely offers moments like this. And when they happen, they create an echo that goes beyond the tournament. If this episode made anything clear, it's that Alcaraz not only plays to win, but also, when the time comes, plays to defend what he considers fair. In short, what seemed like a protocol anecdote has left a mark. Fans will keep talking about his cross-court backhand, his serving power, and about the time in Cincinnati when he said no to covering a logo, reminding us that tennis is also a stage where personality matters as much as the score. The clash in Cincinnati will not define Carlos Alcaraz's career, but it does add a revealing chapter to his story, one in which, without losing his composure, he showed that he is willing to defend his convictions even in the middle of competition. For a player who looks set to dominate the next decade, that character can be as decisive as his game. In a sport so meticulous and governed by unwritten codes, these kinds of gestures are rare. Perhaps that's why they resonate so much with fans, because they remind us that behind every point and every title there is a player with his own ideas. Alcaraz came into this match with a clear mission: to improve every day, in every training session, in every point. He had said it before starting and, against Nardi, he felt he was achieving it. "I'm very happy with how I've felt the ball, how I've moved. I've adapted to the humidity, the heat and everything," he explained. His body language on court confirmed it: aggressive in the rallies, quick in the transitions and solid in the key moments. This win not only put him in the quarterfinals, it also reinforced an impressive streak. Since Monte Carlo, Alcaraz has not failed to reach that stage in any tournament. The Mercian acknowledged that the key is in the balance between competition and free time. Staying mentally fresh to come back hungry to the court is fundamental. With that mindset and the tennis he showed against Nardi, Alcaraz stands out as one of the big favorites to lift the title in Cincinnati. Sinner delivers the blow to Carlos Alcaraz in Cincinnati. The Italian tennis player struggled a lot against Diallo, but he continues to hold on to a stat in these matches that allows him to maintain his edge over the Spaniard. Jannik Sinner struggled last night to overcome the Canadian Diallo, managing to win only the second set in the tie-break and by 8-6, thus avoiding going to a third set which, against someone who serves like the North American, is always a lottery. The world number one himself admitted at the end of the match to Tennis TV that he had had a hard time and had felt that it was a very difficult day at the office. When you face this type of opponent, who are big servers, you always have to find a certain balance from the baseline, which can take you some time. In that sense, today I found myself with problems during many phases of the match, said Sinner, who, like Alcaraz in his debut, was therefore happier with the result and with having faced a complex situation that helps him improve for what's coming next. That's the difference that can be most clearly seen between the two great talents currently dominating tennis. One suffers, but doesn't lose sets, while Carlos Alcaraz, despite having the best run of results of his career since Monte Carlo, has indeed dropped sets on more than one occasion. Sinner tops Alcaraz in the comparison. Sinner has won 28 of the 31 matches he has played this year. In fact, he has only lost the finals in Rome and Roland Garros to Nadal and in Halle to Bublik, when he still had in his mind what happened in the Paris final. And, on hard court, which is where the Cincinnati Masters 1000 is played and where he will compete until the end of the season, he has gone almost a year without losing. Since he lost the final of the ATP 500 in Beijing 2024, also to Alcaraz, no one has been able to beat him on that surface, where he has racked up 23 consecutive victories. Carlos Alcaraz, for his part, has a record of 49-6 in 2025, figures almost as good as his great rival in which, having played more, allow him to lead the race with a 1,500-point advantage over Sinner. But there is one stat provided by AFE in which the Spaniard loses. Of those 55 matches, the Mercian dropped at least one set in 27 of them, almost half of the ones he played. Sinner, on the other hand, has only lost 12 sets, 9 of them in the defeats to Alcaraz and Bublik in Paris, Halle, and Rome, and in Dimitrov's retirement when he was leading at Wimbledon. And he has only dropped at least one set in 7 of the 31 matches he has played. As with Diallo and UMPIRE, both Sinner and Alcaraz suffered, but one didn't drop a set and the other had to risk it in the third. That is the aspect the Spaniard still needs to improve to save playing time and instill the fear in his rivals that Sinner has already managed to impose. Carlos Alcaraz, on the heat in Cincinnati: "I'm from Murcia, I should be used to it. The scorching heat in Ohio is proving to be one of the main problems of the tournament." Alcaraz's Serbian opponent had to request medical attention during the break before the second set due to the high temperatures, although he was ultimately able to finish the match. Asked about the heat players are enduring on court, Carlos said after the match, "I tried to stay as focused as possible, defend well, make him run as much as possible. And I think I did well. The heat, I think, affected him quite a bit. He lowered the intensity and energy in the second set. I'm happy to have won such a tough match today," he declared. The world number 2 joked about the high temperatures and compared them to the summer back home in Murcia. "Sometimes tennis players, with the heat, only focus on ourselves. We just think that we're having problems with the heat and with the sun and you feel bad. And sometimes you forget about your opponent, who is also having problems, or even more problems than you," he said in an interview with Tennis Channel. "I try to think about my opponent too and try to turn it into a battle, to make it tough. I'm from Murcia and in Murcia it's very hot in the summer," smiles. "So I try to tell myself that I have to get used to it, the heat in Cincinnati, because I'm used to it, the heat in Murcia. I try not to let it affect me in my game," he concluded.